Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 45-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Kathy, a 53-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum, and change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded and recognise the continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present.
Hey, Laura, how are you going?
Kathy, I am so well. Good to see you. How are you going?
Yeah, not too bad. Look, I'll be honest, I've had a few migraines lately, so that's
no
been,
good.
not a lot of fun. But, I'll survive. It's not the end of the world.
Well, I hope so. I hope you've got some good drugs on hand or some techniques to head into a dark room and sleep them off because they're awful. I hate migraines.
Yeah, I know. They're
horrid.
They do.
Well, I guess I could start with some good news for you then.
Please
yeah.
Give me some.
So, older women are having a moment. And
why older women? How old are we talking? Are we talking 25 or 35?
Oh, no. I'm talking over 50 women. Women over 50. Woo.
Me.
Yay, you. And I know I'm so here for it. I love to see it. And I mean, it probably is my algorithm and your algorithm and probably women of our age's algorithm. But what we're seeing in big ways, which I find very encouraging. The Golden Globes happened just recently and we shared Demi Moore speech from our Instagram account because she won her first award after something like 45 years in the business. I think her speech was, she's almost 60, is Demi Moore and looking amazing. But not only did Demi Moore win at this year's Golden Globes, there were heaps of other women in their 40s, 50s and 60s in the spotlight. And I think this is one of the first times I personally have ever seen it. And there's been a lot of media around it, which I think is fantastic. So just to list a few that I found: Jodie Foster, she's 62. Demi Moore is also 62. The Brazilian actress Fernanda Torres was 59. Zoe Saldana, 46. They all won awards for their performances. And I think it just shows not only are they being recognised by their contemporaries and by the industry in general, but they're getting better roles, right? Because obviously if there weren't roles for women, which there weren't for years, you were either the kind of ingenue and you were sort of 25 playing the wife of someone in their 50s.
Yes.
Or you were a grandma kind of role playing a crazy lady or something. Like
kind of like the First Wives Club.
Yes,
that with,
I love that film.
And Goldie Hawn in that. Just after, like in that opening scenes, she's desperately trying to get the cosmetic surgeon to fill her lips.
That's
more.
Right.
And then they bump into each other,
yes,
at the funeral, and then they go out for lunch and they're saying, tell us what work you've had done. And she's like, oh, no work, just, healthy living and clean diet and lots of exercise.
Yeah.
And she was trying to convince the cosmetic surgeon that she needed to have all of this work so that she could stay current. And doesn't she then turn up? Like, she's like, oh, I've got this great, this audition. Turns out that she thought she was auditioning for the lead role of the young, hot woman.
And she was young and hot then.
And she was young and hot,
she was probably mid-40s.
Yeah. I mean, and she looks amazing.
Yeah, she still does.
But she was actually, they hadn't told her.
Yeah.
But she was actually there to be her mother.
That's right.
Something.
It's a very funny moment in the film, but yes.
She didn't take it all that well.
No,
right?
no. And I think that's right. So there were comedy films like that, and also another one, that era with Goldie Hawn is one of my favourite eras. I thought she was brilliant in Death Becomes Her as well. Although that's kind of creepy in that it's all about the fountain of youth, isn't it? Although they end up not so well. But yes, there were comedy movies and for a niche group of women, but there weren't awards where it was like what Demi Moore said about being a popcorn actress. She never was able to kind of elevate to the levels that men have always obviously been able to be awarded for.
Jodie Foster was in The Accused, but she was amazing. Like that particular, I'm sure it was called The Accused.
Yes.
And essentially, I'm sure it was about a horrific assault.
Sexual
and she
assault.
was basically the only female in the movie. And so she was a standout performance, that year that came out. But they were either like those really hard-hitting, but there weren't other roles, as you say. There wasn't that variety of roles that there are for men.
Yes. And the women winning the Oscars or the Golden Globes were all kind of early 30s, late 20s even. And I think it's been like that for so long. We've just accepted it as a standard sort of thing. Yeah. This is what you see on red carpets, right? So it's just really good to just see well, they're not much older, but they are than the standard Hollywood ingenue on the red carpet winning awards. I love to see it.
I think also it just shows that women, like, we have currency at every age.
That's right.
Like we're not going quietly into the background, as you and I keep talking about.
Yes.
And we have currency at every age. And you can't be what you can't see.
That's right.
So for me, who has daughters, I want my daughters to grow up and see that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still aspire to reach for the stars.
Absolutely.
And, young, old, in between, there's no barrier in your way because of your age. And Pamela Anderson, I mean, I haven't seen the movie. I don't know an awful lot about The Last Showgirl.
It looks amazing.
I just love that she is really coming into herself, if that makes sense, because I certainly grew up with Pamela being on Baywatch, large breasts, very blonde hair, lots of makeup. She was a very stereotypical blonde
like pin-up girl, wasn't she? Not taken seriously at all.
Not at all.
No.
And the media certainly didn't take her seriously.
No.
And the stories, I mean, anyone that I actually don't Google it, because it really was horrific. The takedowns, where when you look back and you think about
her
all
sex tape that got leaked and all that stuff, it's pretty awful. Yeah, she was treated poorly, like so many other women.
But to see her coming into her own and saying, you know what, I'm not going to wear makeup. You know what, this is who I am. I'm going to wear a pretty dress and I'm going to do my hair myself and I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to fit into this cultural thing anymore. So you're right. It is wonderful to see that. And that is some really good news for us.
It is. And it's aspirational, right, to see women like Jamie Lee Curtis is another one. I shared her hilarious clip where she was hilarious. Doing the same dance that she did in that 1985, funnily enough, movie. Called something like that. I haven't seen the film. Perfect. And she's beautiful. She's only 26. She's good doing that aerobics scene. It's very famous.
Terrible.
Very cheesy 80s. And then she reenacted it and she's age 66 now and she looks amazing. Yep. She looks great. And Jamie, she's not had any work done. She is quite open about that. We're talking about her being very natural and aging as she wants to, and we're all entitled to age how we want, but I love seeing different women, famous women out there doing their thing, being fabulous, looking fabulous, and working interesting roles. It's really great. But it's actually not just the celebrities. And you sent me a great clip that I missed. The Project is a TV show here on Channel 10, and they had a feature about how older influencers are having a moment, and they did an interview with a pair of friends called Ginger and Carmen, who they like to go shopping, they like to travel, they just like to have a lot of fun, and they're kind of going off, they're popping off on TikTok. And I think that's really great because while it's a very youth-centric kind of a space, TikTok, there is definitely a moment currently for embracing women of every age, and it's really nice to see some local women from Australia doing good things and just having fun and showing that women of a certain age can still, you know, look great in fashion and have fun and produce good content that people want to work with and pay them for. That's the other thing, right? It's not just that, you know, young brands working with young people. There are older women that are brand worthy too.
I think it's also the marketing agencies are starting to catch up and realize who has the money.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, the older we get, the more disposable income we have, and the more, like, we actually have the money, right?
Yeah.
And if they want us to spend it, then they need to target us where we are, not target us as though we are 20-year-olds or, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Instead of sort of trying to get us to dress like 20-year-olds, say, well, dress however you want, but like, here's fashion or here's makeup or here's skincare that is for older skin, you know, even, you know, you see things that they're like, oh, we do women's specific exercise classes. Okay, but are they actually for women of my age or going through my life cycle, being menopausal, and so catering for the things that I need with the hormone loss that I have, the bone density that I need, you know, like, it's one thing to say we do women's health, but do we really do women's health? And I think it's, there was also another article that I saw, which I thought was a really lovely one. And I mean, I fit, so I meet their criteria. You don't. It's the granny grommets over in WA.
Yes,
they've
I
been
love
around
this.
for about 20 odd years. We'll pop the link in the show notes. They're starting to go off around the world, but you have to be 50 to join the granny grommets.
Love it.
And they have a wait list, and there are people.
And are they bodyboarding?
Pardon?
Bodyboarding, right?
Yeah,
They've got
bodyboarding as
in the
opposed
ocean
to surfing.
Yes.
Because it's a little bit easier. Well, I say a little bit easier on the body, but I'm pretty sure in the story they talk about one of the women who has had like a broken nose, and you know,
you get bashed around by the ocean, right?
By the waves,
can be
like
quite
that.
vicious.
Yeah,
but you don't have to push yourself up onto the board, just standing. So it's a bit more age inclusive.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I just really love that, and then it is spreading around the world, and we will not. Well, I will not try and say the French term and butcher it, but the English translation is the turbulent penguin.
Yes, it was so cute. I love that. Le pingouin turbulent or something along those lines, which
I'm
clearly
quite sure that any of our French listeners will come
and come for me.
Come for you, mainly because you're British trying to speak French and you butchered it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, at least I tried. At least they'd like to, I'm sure they'd like to see that. But yeah, I think also grommet is a term that I suppose doesn't translate so well into Europe, hence the penguins, because I had never heard of the word grommet before I came to Australia. So it's obviously a very, mini surfer. Yes, because Jules my husband talks about seeing all the grommets out in the waves.
Grommies.
But, or grommies. So yeah, it's very
They have no
cute.
respect for us old folk who, you know, you understand, like, you have to line up on the wave and don't drop in.
Don't drop in. It's a lot of etiquette with surfing. So
there sure is. But apparently the granny grommets do not necessarily have the same etiquette because they're surfing in the shore break, and they're not going out the back and
interrupting the surfer flow, which we don't want. Yeah.
It was. I thought that was a really sweet article, and we did an interview with Jacinth Bassett from Ageism is Never in Style.
Big fans of her work, and
which was season 1, I want to say. Gosh, that seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. And we're big fans of Jacinth, and I just thought that like the Project 10, the Project story on Channel 10 and also the Granny Grommets, they really play into the Ageism's new campaign that they're launching at the moment, which is Don't Fear Your Future, which is so
well, it's so inclusive, and I think it's something that young people really need to understand. I know I still feel a little afraid about aging and getting old, and I think there's a lot of things to unpack there personally for me, but that by talking about these things, and not just in a physical way, their campaign is all about not fearing your future financially. So and they're going down other areas like health, not fearing it from a health perspective, but currently they're launching this whole concept where we just need to don't fear the future by learning about these things as women, and it's important to take control and ownership over our own finances, and that's what they're focusing on, and it's a great area, right, to learn about for women.
Yes. And I mean, I did like one of them because it was around, knowing that aging is privilege and that life actually can get better as we get older. And I think it does if we let go of some of our fears.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's so important. So important to have good role models, great campaigns like this one, women like the Granny Grommets, famous women doing fabulous things, and just being able to see them all and go, you know what? Being in my 50s, 60s, 70s plus is not as scary as I think it is. And also getting informed and educated and all that stuff as well to face what's ahead. Highly important.
And some of the incredible women that we've spoken to over the last year as well, women that are doing incredible things, writing their first book at 70 is, it doesn't end. There's no end date on doing anything in life. The end date is when you, it's only there if you put it on yourself. That's meditation. Right. Oh, Laura,
Kathy.
I feel like 2025 can just fuck off.
I take it we're going into our bad news story, Kathy.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's just, here we are mid-January, and I shared a meme the other day on Instagram, and it was, I would like to cancel my subscription to 2025. I have experienced the 7-day free trial and I'm not interested. And it really kind of, look, I know that we said similar things about 2020. It was a bin fire and,
2021.
It's just all the things. But it feels like there's been a lot that has happened, and we're only kind of mid-Jan, and it just feels a little bit overwhelming. I mean,
it's a little dystopian, isn't it? I think when you see the wildfires, for example, that are happening currently in LA and are awful, devastating, hard to actually comprehend, because in Australia we do experience bushfires here in summer, and they can be terrifying also. But I think with LA, the current LA fires, they're destroying towns. And in my mind, I'm thinking of towns and suburbs like Bondi. It's kind of that equivalent, right? Because they're coastal towns.
So, I mean, I lived through the 1994 bushfires in New South Wales, and my parents and family were actually away on holidays, and I was at home. We had 2 houses on the one property at the time, and we it was coming, and it was pretty horrific, and it has never left me, I'm going to say. We didn't lose our house, but we had fire on our back fence. I remember trying to get hold of my parents. And so, we're talking 1994. There were no mobile phones, right?
Yeah,
my parents were camping in a caravan park, but they were in a tent and everything. But the only way I could get a message to them was to ring the office. And then there was a chalkboard out the front, and they would write a message on it, Jim and Sue, please call home. And then I would have to hope that I was around to answer the phone. And I didn't know what to take. I didn't know what was important, what wasn't important. I remember feeling very scared and
stressful.
Thinking, well, what's important? What papers do I need to take? I really just remember really wanting to speak to my dad to find out what papers do I need to take. And that was like in our area. So a number of our friends lost their homes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
We had some footballers, some Cronulla footballers were billeting with us at the time, and I had to go and get them from football training. And we had been formally evacuated from, and as far as the police were concerned, there was no one in the homes in our street. So had anything happened when we went back in, they wouldn't have come looking for us. We drove down the street and there was a fireball at the end of the street.
Oh, my gosh.
They're things that never leave you.
No, so scary.
Yeah, and there was about 100 homes lost across the Sutherland Shire in that time. Now, at time of recording today, we're upwards of 1,500 homes, 2,000 homes in the US. And I know a lot of people think that the particular areas are really wealthy celebrities. Now, they might be working actors, but not all working actors make a lot of money.
No, it's a lot of normal people in there. Yeah.
And then the flip side of that, of course, is that the big properties, the large properties, estates, if you like, the millionaire rows that have gone, those people actually provide work for other people in the area. So they might be their gardeners, they might be their pool people, they might be their,
nannies,
food delivery, whatever it is. But everything is gone. So these people, some of these people have not only lost their home, but they've also lost their source of income because their employer has lost their home, or they worked in the shops, or they worked in the schools
that have burnt down
because
the schools
the
have burnt
schools
down.
Have gone.
I saw that too. It's awful.
So places that would also normally be places of refuge when you are evacuating, they've burnt down. Lives have been lost. It just feels like a lot. And, because I do love my climate change and I do love my just emergencies and weather and everything.
Yes,
I was reading
your background with the SES. Yes.
And I was reading a story on ABC about that came out of the Copernicus climate change in the Europe. And it had this ever hopeful, I say in inverted commas and not really hopeful at all, statement, these high global temperatures coupled with record global atmospheric water vapour levels in 2024 meant unprecedented heat waves, heavy rainfall events, causing misery for millions of people. And it's just like, oh my God, does it end? And then, Matt Haig, who I follow him on Instagram, and he
writer and philosopher, generally.
Yeah. And he's a great guy, and he tends to, he probably lives in the side of Eeyore rather than the side of Tigger.
Well, certainly has had experiences with mental health.
Yeah. So, but he has a post where he has listed a very long list of things, which we will not go through. But some of the other, if we move off the wildfires and off the horrific climate change, that I have to believe that we will do something about.
Yes.
As a world, we have to step up, and we have to look, and we have to go, you know what? We have to do something, because if we don't, what's happening in LA, it's winter time. It's not summer.
No.
And it's summertime here. So what has happened in the past is in summertime here, when we have bushfires, they will send their experienced wildfire fighters and also the big air tankers and appliances to come and help with our fires. But if they're getting wildfires in winter, they can't send those to us. So, and we can't send them to them, and all the seasons are melding together.
It's a mess. It's a total mess, and it's definitely climate change.
Absolutely. I'm sure human driven, and I'm sure there's an element of natural stuff that happens. There are natural cycles in climate as well over the years of history, but some of the other, like what the actuals that have happened recently are Mark Zuckerberg kind of dressed, I don't know, honestly, I can't even kind of get my head around
what was he wearing?
What he was wearing,
and necklace,
and the curly hair, and he just did not. Anyway,
he's in a new era.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Haig describes that he was wearing. It was an attempt to look like a guitarist in a resident cruise ship band in 1988. Announced that Meta was no longer going to fact check. The funny part about that for me is that it actually implies that Meta was fact checking, because I'm not sure there was a whole lot of fact checking over there.
No.
And of course, climate change. There's just
there's a lot that Matt Haig's feeling worried about for 2025, and I get it. Like, we've got Trump about to become president, right? And he is trying to annex Canada, Greenland.
The
Panama Canal.
Take back the Panama Canal. He's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Oh, my God.
I mean, usually when you take on a new job, I mean, albeit that he has been there previously, but he hasn't been in the role for a little while. Typically, when you take on a new job, you do wait until you get your feet under the desk before you start, I don't know, letting the cows loose in the paddock. But
for sure,
this is Trump. So
it is Trump. It's a scary. I mean, and the other thing that I was having a look at the post. I know, but something that Matt Haig brings up that I am sort of worried about personally is the whole dopamine-driven YouTuber sensationalist draining. He calls it a draining migraine of modern culture, where you've got the kind of last man standing sensationalist beast game stuff that sometimes my sons talk about. Like, they watch something where you've got to stand with your hands on a car, and the last person standing wins the car. And now this is getting millions, maybe even billions of views. And this is what people are spending their time doing, and it does give you great concern for the future of humanity when you realize that people are investing in this kind of a culture of, I'll watch YouTube and maybe I'll win a car, or maybe I will win $1 billion, or maybe, rather than actually kind of thinking about how they can improve their lives in a much more measured, interesting, get a job, read a book, like slow it down. It really scares me, just tech generally, and parenting in the age we are parenting is unprecedented times. And I do the kind of machismo stuff, the Trump era, and how you've got the Andrew Tates, and they're all kind of emboldened by this era that we're in currently. And it does worry me. And and as Matt Haig has said, and I think it's something that 2025 is going to be interesting for. I
don't know. Fingers crossed it's not going to be all bad. Fingers crossed it's not going to be as horrifically bad as we think. And, I mean, we've seen terrible things before. People have lived through terrible things in the past.
Correct.
This is not the worst thing that everybody has lived through. And you did send me this beautiful poem, which I might read to just kind of, I don't know, give us
because it feels like when
uplifting.
Times like this you think, I can't do anything. The billionaires are taking over, climate change, wildfires, we're all going to die. And then you can do something.
We can do things on a micro level. We can do things for our community. We can
for
volunteer.
each other.
We can, I mean, my mum has retired and she spends an awful lot of time, like close to 30 to 40 hours a week, volunteering with the local Meals on Wheels community.
Fantastic.
So there is always something that we can do. Who was it? Fred Rogers. Is that the right name?
Don't know.
And he says, look for the helpers.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I like that because it's true. People
and
are
it's
always
true.
helping.
Like, look for the helpers. But I just thought I'd just end this kind of crazy little weird, I don't know what's happening in the world. It just feels a little bit chaotic, and maybe it's because I'm a parent. And so I'm scared for the future. I don't know.
Totally. And even non-parents, you're scared for the future, for your friends.
What are we leaving for people?
And what are we leaving? That's right, legacy.
Yeah.
And it is hard at the moment. But I think you're right. We can do something, and there is hope. There is hope. Yeah, read it. Lauren Brandt, she's a great parenting writer.
Yes. Lauren Brandt wrote, "Never think your contributions to humanity is too small. Never stop trying because it feels overwhelming. Send that text, drop that heart, make that call. Give $2, hug your kids, wave to your neighbour, smile at the dog, hold that space in your heart. Even when it feels like you don't know where to start, keep getting up, keep on trying, ignore the billionaires and corrupt. A million drops make a cup. We are not helpless, we are not hopeless. Little bits of love, little bits of care lets the universe know you are grateful to be there."
Ah, love it.
I think is lovely because the world is a beautiful place, really, and we're surrounded by incredible people. And I said it in the last segment, but you and I have had the privilege of interviewing some really incredible women, and there are lots of incredible people doing incredible things.
Yeah, or even just normal people doing normal shit, which we love. I love to just sort of see my friends, and I think they're all okay, and they're not evil, you know. No. I know lots of lovely people. So the world is made up of beautiful people. It's just unfortunately very few have the power at the moment. So hopefully,
it feels
power to the people. We need to take it back, guys. Yes. We need to assemble.
Now, Laura, last week we talked about 1985, which I threw down the gauntlet, and I actually think is, and I'm still going to stand by it, still the best. The 80s were the best, are the best, and I'm yet to find another decade that's going to top it. And I think you were going to do a little bit of research for us to see if you can top it.
I can.
Hit me.
Because...
Can you really?
Well, look, I love the 80s. I love it.
You were a baby.
I was a baby. I was only 9 when the 80s finished, so I was still a little lass. And while I love the music,
you were first job.
Yeah, you were doing stuff. You were taking on the world.
I will just say, you got paid shit. My first job, working full time, was $125 a week. $125 a week.
I mean, that sounds low. My first job in the UK, I got paid £2.25 an hour. I don't know. That was my Saturday job. It's in a pet shop. So, and that was the 90s. So I don't think there was much improvement between 85 and 95, quite frankly. So 95 was 30 years ago.
Yes.
Was it?
No. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, God, it was. See, that's how old we are.
Laura and I, I
can't maths now.
We are words girls. We are not.
I'm not
maths people.
But when I said that, I was like, it can't be 30. Oh, no, it is. It really is. And so I was at school still in 1995, and I loved it because the main reason I loved 1995, I think, was I was coming into my indie girl era.
Yep.
And there were some great albums released in that year that I still love to this day. I want to talk about Different Class by Pulp, The Bends by Radiohead, What's the Story, Morning Glory, Jagged Little Pill, Alanis Morissette, some absolute classics, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness by the Smashing Pumpkins. As you can tell, I was very much in an indie kind of guitar-y music era. But I think it wasn't just the indie music that it was a big year for. There was some great pop and kind of R&B. R&B was actually really having a big moment in 95. Gangsta's Paradise, according to Billboard, was top #1 song by Coolio. Wasn't that in that movie with Michelle Pfeiffer? I want to say...
What was it called?
I want to say Dangerous Liaisons. That's not it. It's not that.
Dangerous Minds.
Dangerous Minds. Yeah. Oh, my God. She was a teacher, like the hottest teacher ever.
She was the hottest teacher ever. and she was a white woman
Yeah.
in a very
It's probably problematic now, is it? I don't know.
Underprivileged neighborhood.
Yes, that's right. But it's a great song. Waterfalls and Creep. I had the double-sided CD single by TLC. Absolute classic. I loved it very much. There was A Kiss from a Rose by Seal. There was Fantasy by Mariah Carey. Another Night, Real McCoy. Great Little Dance Floor. Another dreamer always you.
We are sorry. We're not singers either, are we? Also not singers.
But Madonna was still going strong. She was going strong in 85. In 95, she was there with Take a Bow, which is a beautiful song. Love that. Look, there was This Is How We Do It by Montel Jordan. That was a bit of a banger. There were heaps of great songs, heaps of great albums. What were you up to in 1995, Kathy? Where were you?
Working, probably on about my 10th job because ADHD, get bored very easily.
Okay.
Switch jobs. I was going on lots of dates. I went on my first date with my husband, my now husband, in 1995. That didn't progress. That then
took a few more years.
Yeah, it took a few more years for that to develop into.
So were you in your early 20s in 95?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah. So mid
20s. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because I was 16.
Yeah, so. Mid 20s with absolutely no idea what I was going to do with my life. No idea what I was going to do with my future.
It's okay. Yeah.
Just aimlessly wandering through, going out every night of the week.
As you've got to do.
On podiums in Oxford Street, drinking an awful lot of money, smoking cigarettes. Sorry, Mum, if you do listen. Yes, I did smoke. I know that I always try to tell you that I didn't, and my brother.
This is your official confession, is it?
Yeah. My brother and my cousins always were trying to get me into trouble, and I would pretend that I wasn't smoking. Drinking an awful lot, and not really. Having a great my
time.
Life,
listening to Wonderwall. Just doing, but also probably Another Night by The Real McCoy. Down the club.
All sorts of other music, trance and raves
trance was really coming into it then, wasn't it? It was really big dance music scene in the 90s.
It was a big time, certainly, and it was a very different time. I'm not sure that I would encourage any of my children to do some of the things that I did. It was pretty silly time as well, you just a time when I took a lot of risks that I look back on and go, was that a great idea? But I'm here now.
Yeah, you are here now, and I think when you're young, you do have that. You're going to take risks, like whatever your parents say, whatever the culture of the time, everyone does, and that's probably the right time to do it. But I think we all look back with rose-tinted glasses, don't we? I love looking back at the 90s. The music, the films, they were all
film?
Okay, films. There was Die Hard with a Vengeance, Bruce Willis. That was number one apparently in the box office for that year.
Was that like number 2, number 3? Who really knows? I mean, they're all the kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
I think it was
Bruce
3.
Willis.
I feel like it was 3 of that series.
Yeah, I mean,
there's Toy Story was number 2, great film. GoldenEye, which was Bond.
I watched that recently.
With that Pierce Brosnan era. Yeah, very camp, sort of cheesy Bond, wasn't he?
I do like Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah. Pocahontas, Disney film. Batman Forever. I think that was the one with Jim Carrey. Was it Batman Forever?
Was it? I don't know.
Not
sure.
7 with Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow. That was an absolute horror classic.
Yeah. Andrew and I went and saw on our first date. Honestly, it's not a date movie.
It's really not. It's absolutely awful.
Really
the end of that film
movie.
is still disturbs me.
So
much about that film disturbs me. Yeah. I think I snuck into the cinema to see that with a friend underage.
Because it would have been
an 18.
R-rated.
Yeah. It was an R18 in the UK. So look, there was some great pop cultural moments in the 90s, but I think, and same with the 80s, when you look back and go, God, that was a great decade. But also I think about how we dealt with mental health back then was terrible.
Oh my
gosh.
Look, I'm going to say,
existent, really, wasn't it?
we didn't deal with mental health. You went out and you drank lots of alcohol, and
That's how you dealt with it.
And other people may have done lots of drugs.
Yeah.
And you had eating disorder, and that's how you dealt with it.
That's right. The resources, the information, the knowledge wasn't there. Like, it was a simple time in lots of ways, in that we didn't have technology. We didn't worry about, our parents didn't have to worry about whether or not we were watching shit on YouTube.
We definitely had the internet.
Yeah, we did have email. It was very basic, wasn't it?
And I can remember running. My parents were away one year, away on holidays, and my brother went out and we completely upgraded their computer because it needed like a different RAM, and it needed motherboard. Like, it needed
you wouldn't, because it was dial-up, right? You had
it was dial-up.
Yeah. And you couldn't be on the phone. You were like, get off the phone. I need to be on the internet.
And I think my brother and I completely upgraded my parents' computer and had a second phone line installed into our house.
Jeez.
While they were away on holidays.
Classic.
And they got home and they're like, why the hell do we need this? And we're like, well, you don't. But we do. That was kind of a funny.
It's so funny. I remember, because I was living at home, obviously, and I was only 16. I didn't actually get my first email until I was 18, so I was a couple of years off email. But I do remember some of the tech-savvy kids at school had emails, and I remember that my parents had a big computer in the computer room in our house, and we didn't even have email. I had to go to the library if I wanted to use the email and check.
Look,
hilarious.
I'm going to say, that's probably not a bad thing. Like, I mean, if we think about like all the technology that we have access to now, and if we think about, the craziness of the things that are said on the internet, once upon a time, like in the simpler times, as we talk about, we would, if we were writing a paper for school or uni or whatever, you actually had to go to the library and you had to photocopy pages out of books, the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yes.
And that were peer reviewed, and you had to, source research, actual research, hard copy stuff. And now, like, I mean, honestly, who knows what's real and what's not anymore?
Well, these days, obviously, you can just get ChatGPT to write your essay for you. You don't even need to do the research. So, whether back then the internet was the Wild West and, people were saying that it was unreliable, but now it's so big, it's so massive, it's hard. It's just, it's changed everything. Yeah.
I think that's why when we look back at, when we say like Gen X was amazing, or like, the 80s were fabulous, or the 90s were fabulous, or even the early 2000s,
which they were.
We look back with a fondness because it was a simpler time. It was a different time.
Yeah, totally.
And, I know I kind of look back and I go, I wish I could just be back there. But actually what I just want is no responsibilities and just be able to go out and party every night and rock up to work.
I know.
Deathly hungover, with about an hour's sleep and
feel okay because you're young.
Yeah. And now I'm 12 years sober, and I couldn't think of anything worse. So
there you go. Yeah, and I think it's also just the simplicity of, I wish as a parent that my kids would just watch a film or they would just read a book. But actually, it's so hard. Their attention is so divided. They want to play games. They want to play Fortnite, Xbox. And there's so many other things that we didn't have, the competing and those things that have the dopamine, the likes and the subscribey, the fast-paced YouTube that we didn't have that. It's just a different time. And so it's, as you say, no wonder we look back at our vintage decades with a lot of love and fondness.
Yes, well, I think that's us for this week.
Lovely chatting to you, Kathy, and
I'm loving our weekly catch-up.
Loving our weekly catch-up. And if you want to send us a little voice note or a message, please do. We'll listen and
any
might
guest
include
suggestions.
Absolutely,
we would love your guest suggestions.
We are planning ahead for season 4, and we can't wait to start interviewing some more wonderful women.
Yes. Bye. Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change, your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.